So these are notes for homework 17, which is called Factoring Using Distributive Property. So what we're going to do is we are going to factor out the GCF, which is the greatest common factor. And so when you factor out, what you're really doing is dividing. So when we look at our first example, I have 3a minus 18, and my directions are to factor completely. So I need to find a number that goes into 3 and 8. So 3 will go into 3 and 8. So I'm going to divide both terms by 3. And then that 3 is my greatest common factor. So that becomes part of my answer. And then these parentheses will be part of my answer. And now comes the dividing. So positive 3 divided by positive 3 is 1. And then I have my A. And we usually don't write the 1 in front of the A. Then my minus sign. And then I have 18 divided by 3 gives me 6. So my entire answer is 3 times the quantity A minus 6. So again, 3 is the GCF. So then moving on to number 2. This time my GCF is a number and a letter, because 2 will divide evenly by 10 will divide evenly by 2, and 4 will divide evenly by 2. But this has an x squared and this has an x, so an x will divide evenly also. So now my GCF is 2x, and I do dividing. 10 divided by 2 gives me 5. X squared divided by x. Remember, I subtract the exponents, so x to the 2 minus 1 just gives me x. Then I have my plus sign. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And then when I have exactly the same thing on top of each other, so x divided by x, those actually just cancel. And my answer is 2x times the quantity times the quantity 5x plus 2. Now on number 5, because I have a negative sign right here and a negative sign here, my greatest common factor is negative. So negative 5 divides evenly out of negative 5, and negative 5 divides evenly out of negative 10. And I can't use an x because this term has an x, but this term does not. So negative 5 is my greatest common factor. Negative 5 divided by negative 5, those cancel because they're exactly the same. So I'm left with x. And then negative 10 divided by negative 5 is a positive 2. And so my answer is negative 5 times the quantity x plus 2. Now in number 4, I have 3 terms. So I have a 29, a 6, and a 12. So I'm actually going to change this before I start. I really want this to be 27x to the third minus 6x plus 12x, because this time I have the 3 terms. So whatever I choose has to be able to divide evenly into each of these numbers. Well, 3 will go into each of those, And I have an x to the third, an x squared, and an x. So just an x can come out of each of them. Because I can't divide two x's out of this, there aren't two x's. So 3x. And then I'm going to go 27 divided by 3 gives me 9. And then x to the third divided by x to the first. I subtract those exponents. So the 3 minus 1 gives me 2. Minus, and then 6 divided by 3 is 2. X to the second divided by x to the first is x. And then 12 divided by 3 plus 4. And x divided by x, those cancel. So my answer is 3x times the quantity 9x squared minus 2x plus 4. Again, number 5 has 3 terms. And because this leading term is a negative, my greatest common factor needs to be a negative. So negative 3 will go into 12. Negative 3 goes into 6, and negative 3 goes into 3. So you can always try the smallest number and see if maybe that smallest number will divide evenly out of each of these. Then I have a to the 7th, a to the 6th, a to the 5th. I have to use the smallest exponent up there, so a to the 5th. So my greatest common factor is negative 3a to the 5th. Negative 12 divided by negative 3 is a positive 4. A to the 7th divided by a to the 5th, I subtract those exponents, so a to the 2nd. Positive 6 divided by negative 3 is a negative 2. A to the 6th divided by a to the 5th is just a. And then this is a little tricky. Negative 3 divided by negative 3 cancels. And a to the 5th divided by a to the 5th cancel. But actually, if you remember, when you divide, if you have exactly the same thing on top as you do on the bottom, you actually end up with 1. And since that's negative divided by negative, we have a plus 1. So our answer is negative 3a to the 5th times the quantity 4a squared minus 2a plus 1. Okay, when you have some bigger numbers, again, you might try and see, can you do 98 divided by 49? And if so, which we can, then that means that 49 definitely goes into 49. It also goes into 98, and it goes into 49. This one has an X, this one has a Y, this one does not have a letter at all, so I cannot divide by any letters. So my greatest common factor is just 49. So 49x divided by 49 leaves me with x. Negative 98 divided by 49, you can use your calculator, minus 2, and then I have that y. And then 49 divided by 49 is 1, and since they're both positive, it's positive 1. So my answer is 49 times the quantity x minus 2y plus 1. Starting with number 7, you'll notice that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. And so we can do what we just did, but there is nothing that will go into all 4 of these because all 4 of them don't have at least one x. And the only number that they have in common is 1. Well, if you divide by 1, you don't change anything. So when we have 4 terms, we have to split them into 2 different sets. So I'm just going to do the GCF of the first set. So x to the second is the smallest exponent between those two. So x squared is the greatest common factor for those first two. Then I have to do my dividing. So x cubed divided by x squared is x. 3x squared divided by x squared is plus 3. And then I have to move on to my second set. So between these two, the greatest common factor is not a letter because they both don't have a letter, but it's a plus 5. So then that goes right here. So 5x squared divided by 5 is x. 15 divided by 5 is a positive 3. And you'll notice, hopefully, that this parenthesis and this parenthesis match. I don't know why that's highlighted, but I wanted to highlight these. Those have to match. So then when we write our answer has to be everything that's in those parentheses that match, but you write it just one time. And then the next parenthesis is everything that's left over. So this x squared plus this 5 are left over. That's what goes in this parenthesis. And so my answer is the quantity x plus 3 times the quantity x squared plus 5. And those could be in the other order if you want them to be. The answer would still be right. So again, this one has 4 terms, and there's nothing that will go into all 4 terms. So I split it into 2. And my greatest common factor of the first 2 is a 5. So 5. And then I'm going to divide. 5x divided by 5 is x. 15 divided by 5 plus 3. And then the greatest common factor on this side is a plus y. And so plus y gets written right here in front of my new set of parentheses. xy divided by y is x. 3y divided by y is plus 3. And then again, my 2 parentheses should match. So my answer is everything that's in the parentheses just one time. And then everything that's left over, so 5 plus y, goes in this parenthesis. And that is my final answer. This is called factor by grouping. Okay, there's one more that has 4 terms. And since they all have numbers, we look to see, is there any number that will go into all of them? And the only numbers, let's see, 2, but a 2 doesn't go into 15. 4 doesn't go into 15. So we still have to do our 2 sets. Greatest common factor. A 2 will go into both of those. A 4 will go into both of those. But that's it. So 4, and then the smallest exponent is x squared. So 4x squared. And then I do my dividing. So 16x to the third divided by 4x squared is 4x. Then negative 12x squared divided by 4x squared, negative 3. Then the greatest common factor over here, a 4 won't go into both of them. A 5 will go into both of these. So plus 5. So plus 5 goes here. 20x divided by 5 gives me 4x. Negative 15 divided by 5, negative 3. Again, my parentheses match, so that's good. 4x minus 3. And then everything that's left over here in pink, so 4x squared plus 5. And that's my final answer. So then the last two we're actually solving because I have an equal sign here. So this equation has already been factored, so you don't have to do any of the factoring. But what we are going to do is to solve each of these and to get answers for x, I'm going to take this parenthesis and make it equal to 0. And then I'm going to take that parenthesis and make it equal to 0 and solve for x. And sometimes you'll see the answer in a solution set. So the number 11 is just like it. It looks a little weird because it doesn't have two parentheses, but it's the same procedure. So I take this factor or this term, negative 3n, set it equal to 0. And then I take this parenthesis and set it equal to 0. Solve each of these for n. And sometimes we'll get 0 for a solution. Sometimes we'll get a fraction. As long as the fraction is reduced, then a fraction is okay for an answer.